Um, Welcome everybody to the first edition of the LearningCafe Geekout, the AI edition. I'm hoping I'll also have a couple of other editions like the ID edition and a couple of other areas. But thank you for joining us. The Learning Cafe hypothesis is pretty simple. AI just isn't changing the tools we use. It is fundamentally reshaping our identity as L&D professionals. The reshaping is uneven, it is messy, but it is happening. And we need to understand it beyond just learning to write a prompt. And this is what the session is about. My name is Jeevan Joshi, and I am the founder, but kind of more of a community manager for Learning Cafe, and really happy to be running the first edition. This is not a webinar. We've got a couple of slides just to illustrate a few concepts. There are no sales pitches. This is planned to be a fortnightly edition. So, I hope we can show you a lot of things. Actually, fortnightly might be a bit too late because the way that AI is advancing, you would almost want a weekly chat on what's happening in the world of, AI. But just not the advancements and the hype. I think it's to kind of look beyond that and look under the hood to actually what is usable now, and what is immature and might be risky. So real pragmatic assessment of where we are and what we can use. Now, joining me today is Jason, who is deep into learning tech for a long time. I probably won't say 30 years, Jason. You're too young for that. But you know what,
Was
Jason and I have worked for quite some time, and I will when he's presenting, allow him to introduce himself. But yeah, very deep with learning tech, and I have worked with Jason before, so which was a very good experience.
Mhm.
All right. So, look, today, as you can see on the screen, basically we're going to cover two things. I'll go first with using Gemini Opal and a feature called Gems in that to basically create a storyboard, right? So, and then we'll pass it on to Jason, who's going to build an assessment tool using Cursor, which is one of the most prominent IDE. I'm not sure what IDE stands for. It's the
integrated development environment.
development environment. That's the one, right? So I just learned that it's probably one of the most prominent ones that are around. Having said that, pretty much every AI company has one too. Okay, so Jason, I'm gonna hand it, over to you,
Yeah.
and to do the intro for my session.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So before Jivan, before you bounce in and start sharing your screen and doing the magic or the voodoo that you do so well, for those in the audience that actually don't know, who are you and why are you playing with these tools now? Why is it so important?
Absolutely, and just type them in the text box. There would love to kind of know the background. So we'll make a start, Jason, while they're doing that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure if you heard the question there, Jeeves, but
No, no,
yeah, just
yeah, sure. No, I did. Oh, yeah, sorry, it was for me. I thought you were talking about the audience. I wasn't sure. Okay, all right. Geez, this is like first time jitters. Hey, look, yeah, look, I've been around I guess, in learning technology for 35 years. So Fee, who's also in the audience, kind of betrays our age, around for a long time. But look, I'm on a new journey now, especially since AI has come in. So been a consultant to some of the leading organizations in terms of learning systems, strategy, processes. But I think that all I'm having to revisit because just there's a lot of things that AI is changing the way that I think, the way I do. So I think that's where I am at the moment.
Oh, awesome. So with that in mind, what are you planning on showing us, building for us today? And keep it super simple, like plain English.
Yeah, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a storyboard generator, which is a mini app. So that mini app, I'll show you how to do it. And once that's done, I will show you the output, which is the storyboard, just to demonstrate how simply and quickly it can be done.
Yeah, awesome. So why do we need this though? Like we've been doing storyboards for as long as I can remember, and that's a pretty long time. So why now? Why can't we just do storyboards?
Me too. So, been doing storyboards for a long time, and as anybody who has done storyboard will know that there is actually a lot of time you kind of just putting the document together, just the mechanics of the document. So the thinking part gets overcrowded, or there's not enough time to do that because you're kind of just updating the storyboard, and it goes through a lot of iterations. So I think using AI, what I'll demonstrate is that it is actually possible to come up with a pretty good draft of a first version of the storyboard, which can obviously fine tune. So it actually allows you to focus more on the thinking part and the more creative part. And that's what I'll demonstrate in this. And I think this will kind of quite fundamentally change the way that we design courses.
Okay, well, that sounds pretty cool. And I'm guessing this is not free. It's like, what's the damage and what are you using?
Yes, I'm using Google Gemini, so I'm kind of sticking to Google Gemini and a little bit of Perplexity for the time being, but mostly Google Gemini. So I am on the Pro version. So what you're seeing here is on the Pro version. Now that cost me about 33 Australian dollars, per month. But along with that, you also get, Google One storage and access to Google Docs, etc. So just not Gemini. That's quite adequate for me. And along with that, as you're aware, that Gemini comes along with video, image generation, research, everything. So for me, it's a pretty neat package.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, yeah, maybe start sharing and let's see the
All right,
magic.
let's go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just now show you. I'm going to log into Google, right? And this is what the kind of screen looks like. Let me just expand that a little bit. All right, so this is your Google Gemini screen, just like ChatGPT or Perplexity. What you've got here on the left-hand side is the gems. So gems are where you kind of got pre-packaged applications and tools. So I'm going to click that, and you can see that once I've clicked it, it actually shows me gems or little apps that have been made by Google Labs. I do want to emphasize this feature is a little bit experimental, but having said that, I think it's so mature even now that it's definitely become production very soon. But it's available for you to use now. So you can choose pre-existing gems, but I'm going to create my own gem, right? So the way you do that is you kind of say create a gem, right? And it says what kind of app or workflow do you want to build an app for, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this and I'm going to say, hey, Gemini, build a storyboard development app, right? So ask me for the topic, then the course requirements, then the interactivity I require in the course, and then any reference documents or files that I want Gemini to refer to in the development of the storyboard. Once you've done that, please download in a Google Doc format, right? Also, after you've done that, I'm going to remove this because it'll make it a little bit complicated. And I'll explain why. I would like to, in theory, you could say also generate images for each screen, but I won't do that at the moment. Also estimate the number of development hours required to build this course, right? So could do that, but I'll just remove that because it takes a little time to think through, right? So if I press go, right, you can see that it starts creating your app right away, right? And while it's doing that, you can see that it'll kind of, show you the thinking, behind it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop this and show you something that I built earlier, right? So basically, what it's going to look like, I've put exactly the same prompt, right? And come up with a gem, which is, I'll show you the finished form, and we will go through that. So it's called the course architect. Actually, I didn't even give it the name. Gem gave the name to the app. It's called a course architect. Right, and I can see on the left here, right, is kind of the steps that it has figured out what is required, and on the right here is basically the app, right? So I'm gonna do um, start, right? So what is the main topic? And I've chosen a generic topic for this. So it is fundamentals of AI risk management, right? Um, well, I'm gonna do this one down. Right. And it's going to ask me, what are your learning objectives, etc. Right. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to, I've typed up something earlier. So I'm going to, not that. Okay. So I'm going to, basically build the, kind of say, okay, so I specify my audience, bank for bank employees, right? Employees, and I can describe the audience, etc. Right? And I'll show you certain instructions. I just want to show you at the moment how easy, despite the engagement level. So level one, interactivity. So, interactivity is basically fairly basic. You've got image, text, click next kind of a course. I have tried level two, but it's a little complicated to show at the moment. Provide relevant, course material so I can actually upload from my device and go, the artificial intelligence risk management framework that I picked up from NIST, which is the big body for um, uh, cybersecurity. And then I go next, right? Now it's starting to actually do all the things that you want it to do, right? So I'll show you something that I, kind of, built earlier. So it's going through, and I think what will be also interesting is I'll just show you in the advanced editor, right? So if you want to see of the workings for how this particular, AI is thinking, here it is. Here's the logic, right? So it's the inputs. So I've asked it to provide the course topic, course requirements, interactivity level reference documents. And you can actually click on each of these and you can see whether the prompt is for each of these, right? So you've got the inputs, and then you also got, the different things. So essentially, you don't have to do any of this. It's just a nice visual representation with the logic and show. And you can actually, also amend the logic if you wanted to, right? It's done everything based on the prompt that I showed it there, right? So if we go back and I'll show you, something that I've done earlier is this is the output, right? So while it's doing it, this is what it kind of, produces. So you can see in a Word document, and I will share this document with you so you can have your own look. Generic topic. It's given me, and I've kind of highlighted the blue text for the text on the screen. So this is a storyboard, right? That's the blue thing that you stick in your storyboard, right? It's also suggested a visual interaction. Now, this image, I've actually used the text in Gemini to generate the image, right? But I could, in theory, ask the Opal to generate image for each screen, right? It does get complicated and takes a long time, but I'm still kind of fine tuning it. So at the moment, I separate them out. Once I get the storyboard, I stick it, into Gemini to get the images. So you can see that it's done that. And it's even given me the target audience that I specified, all bank employees with no prior AI risk management. So it's given me screen text, right? It's given me the visual clues for that, right? And you can see that here's another example that the content of the screen. But then I'm also going to go straight to the quizzes. So I asked it to generate a quiz. So here is um, multiple choice questions, which I asked you to generate from that particular material, right? So you can see that there is a question that usually also marks the one that's correct. I can ask it to identify that. So there you go. That's kind of the output from from the um, from the app, right? So now this app, I can reuse it, right? Anytime I want. So, I can start again, right? And give a different topic, um, different material, different audience. And the more specificity I make, the better it becomes. But I think that's kind of where I will stop in terms of, hey, that's how easy it is. I am genuinely impressed by the storyboard that it has produced. It is a really, and I told you to chunk the content. So there's no chunking I did, right? So it's done the chunking on its own. And I also said the instruction I gave it is just put enough content on the screen so it is not to overwhelm the reader. So good instructional design principles, which I make if I kind of choose my principles, design principles, and state that more explicitly, it will give the storyboard that's closer to what my philosophy is. So I think this is kind of where I want to stop. This is I use the gem to produce um, the storyboard, but I can essentially build an app for anything that I want. So identify the top 5 articles on learning technology, right? So it builds an app. So I think that's where I'll stop in terms of using Gemini, gems, and you can say that there are some the recipe genie for Cooking. This is the one made by Google. There's Marketing Maven, so brainstorm marketing ideas. Claymation Explainer. So basically, you can ask, prompt it to produce a GPT prompt to AI prompt to produce an animation, a claymation animation, etc., etc. So I think there is where I'll finish. Jason or anybody else, any
Mhm.
questions?
No, but you've given me some really cool ideas that I think would be fun to experiment in, specific to the learning and teaching space. So you've got something where you're the instructional designer, you have an idea for maybe a compliance course that needs to be delivered. Imagine extending that so the AI knows about me personally. It knows, let's say I'm working on a project in the future, it has an awareness of, my capacitance and all those different things. And it's able to essentially just in time prepare a step-by-step learning program based on the resources we have in-house, but also things like LinkedIn Learning or other YouTube I saw there is something obviously Gemini taps into. You could curate in real time learning pathways for individual learners based on whatever their unique needs are, which is kind of incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, and that's what I want to explore more is kind of more connectivity and more connections
Mm,
to other ecosystems and other resources like YouTube, as you mentioned.
yeah, yeah,
But I also want to just go in, I want to do the end-to-end process. So you can see the storyboard is there, but I also want to do the QA at the
mm,
end. I also want to do the animation if I can. So
yeah,
yeah, there's one question about the Copilot. Look, I think the consensus is that Copilot probably isn't as advanced with these features as some of the Gen AI tools. So look, give it a try. But I think what I can assure you is that these AI platforms copy each other, right? So it'll come soon. But to be honest, I've like kind of tried Copilot. It's probably not the best for this. It's kind of great because
yeah.
it's has access to enterprise data. So the answer probably would be that this is probably this one and ChatGPT is probably the one that are more advanced
Mm.
ones. But yeah,
Yeah,
hey, give it a try in Copilot. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, Copilot with your A, because it has access to your own corpus and it's sort of governed within like the compliance boundary, has some unique benefits to it. They are, and I'm not, it will depend on your environment at the moment. They are bringing in Claude. So they have agreements now with Anthropic to bring in Claude for the main LLM. So for that processing side of it, I guess,
Yeah.
which will have massive benefits. And, it's different to Gemini. Like the way Gemini works is a little bit different, has a little bit better things like image creation and whatnot. But there are certainly ways to do it. Copilot Studio is where I would start. And then if that's not quite, doesn't quite have the capabilities you need, yeah, you can probably build stuff in Azure that would be compliant with whatever your requirements are as well.
No, look, I'm really excited about this
Mm,
because it just storyboarding is going to become easier. But you can imagine you go to a subject matter expert and he's going to say, "Hey, listen, I don't have time for storyboard involved in storyboard. So okay,
mhm.
give me your topic and give me your stuff. Let me do a draft and send it to you, right?"
Yeah.
So I think it'll change the way that just not instructional designer, but the way the vendors do stuff, and hopefully cost less and takes less time to do it. But I think this is where hey. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and well, tell us why we should be listening to you about this, what you presented.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you and the audience. I've spent an incredible amount of time in learning and teaching technology, but teaching more generally. I'm actually a high school teacher by trade, and that has led me on a career path where I was one of the first people in the world to implement Moodle at scale at a university. That led me to things like, for example, working for the College of Physicians, which is where you and I
Yep.
first met. And building formative assessments for medical practitioners, in the workplace. From there, Macquarie University leading e-learning transformation teams. And then, of course, that led me to Instructure. So, if you're not familiar with Instructure, they're the parent company for Canvas Learning Management System. I was the first person anywhere in the world in a non-sales technical role. So my role was going to hundreds of organizations and universities and schools across the region to implement Canvas, so doing all the deep technical integrations between different platforms and things. I'm not technical. I am not an engineer. Just putting that right out there. I'm not trained classically. I'm a Japanese teacher by trade, and I've sort of learnt by doing. From there, I went to Microsoft, where I ended up in Teams for Education Engineering. So I was in part responsible for many of the capabilities that found their way into the product during COVID-19 to support teaching and learning at scale using our platforms. And I have some fantastically hilarious stories about the gaps in our product in the early days. And I'm sure Zoom had similar issues because they
Yeah.
weren't designed for the audience, right? So by that, I've kind of found myself into product management, and I think that teachers, and I'm very passionate about this, that people with teaching and learning and teaching sort of backgrounds become the best product managers, and the skills are highly transferable. So that's kind of
That's
where I
you.
am
No,
today.
excellent. I just
Yeah.
the right person. But tell us, what are you showing us and why are you showing it?
Yeah, so I'm showing Cursor, which is an integrated development environment, an IDE, as it's commonly referred to. The reason I'm showing this is there's a couple of reasons for it. The first one is I am passionate about teaching organizations and leaders within organizations to call BS on vendors, because we're now in a world where a product manager who may not be technical can build applications that are equal to, if not superior than what a vendor will charge you hundreds of thousands of dollars for a SaaS solution. And I mean that in all regards, like everything from compliance, security, all of those things can be done properly within your own environment very quickly and actually quite cheaply as well. So sort of putting the lens of actually, do we really need to outsource things anymore, or can we actually build capability in our own business to do things? And second of all, because of that capability development, and I think there'll be a very big shift in businesses towards doing things in-house again over the next couple of years, there will be a need for learning and teaching professionals to build programs about capability building, like the three things that we need in an AI world, right? Like accountability, judgment, taste. They're the three skills that we really need training on inside of organizations. So just showing you the art of the possible, I'm hoping sparks some imagination. And it's just a nice, like you've done the Gemini thing, which is very visual, just taking that a step deeper to show how far you can take AI and how much control you can actually have over it. I think is just a powerful thing to demonstrate.
Thanks. Sounds good. Jason, over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Let me share my screen. Uh,
Yeah, I'll tell
do-do-do.
you if I can see it.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, got it.
So this may be confronting for those that are listening in to an audio podcast later on. This is an integrated development environment. It's Cody nerd land. It's taken from a product. So the skin of this, what it looks and feels like, is taken from Visual Studio Code, which is Microsoft's development environment. And what you're seeing on screen are really three or four different panels. So the panel to the left is very similar to what Jeevan just showed with Gemini. It's where you prompt agents. I can actually have multiple agents running in parallel if I need to, doing different jobs. In the middle, I have what is my specification document. In product management, we call it a product requirements document. And I prepared this earlier. I'm happy to share this, by the way, if anyone's interested. It is a document that sort of lists out the requirements, similar to what you did, Jeevan. You showed, a storyboard. This is kind of like an engineering storyboard about what we're going to create in the product, what it should be made with, what technologies we want to use, etc. And some decision making. Now, they're a really good practice. This is all documented. There are lots of people out there in the world that know how to do this better than I do. So this shouldn't be scary. Below that is the command line. So if you've ever used the command line inside of Windows or Mac, that's basically what it is. And then on the right-hand side, for those that are listening in, are my files that I'm creating in real time. In advance, just to save some time, I've created a couple of prompts. The first one is, essentially, we are building an interactive quiz. Please look at the product requirements document which is called spec.md, and come up with a step-by-step plan to build this. Now, it's really important to me and for those people that are sort of hearing about vibe coding or context coding to always be a human in the loop to make sure that you're validating whatever AI is doing in time before it does things that could be catastrophic. So I'm
Hey,
using,
Jason,
yeah,
sorry to jump in. Probably should have asked the question before, just to give everybody the context.
yeah,
This platform,
yes.
how do you get it,
Yeah.
and how much does it cost? Is it free? Like,
Yeah, for sure. So Cursor is you can just download it. I think it's
yep.
cursor.com. It's not free, although they may have a free tier. I think $20 per month is like the standard baseline. I'll be transparent, I pay significantly more than that. I pay $200 a month for this for my own professional plan, but I'm writing code and developing software solutions and micro SaaS and SaaS offerings at enterprise level, and I have never hit that limit. So, for $200 a month versus, what you're probably paying per month for some of your SaaS programs, the math doesn't math anymore in the traditional accounting sense. But anyway, yeah, it's Cursor. I'm happy to share links. It's very commonly used. Some of the biggest businesses on the planet are using this as their main technology now. A classic example of that is Stripe. So if you've ever used Stripe for payments, they use Cursor to develop Stripe and to maintain Stripe. So yeah, that's what it is. But anyway, let me press play. We can talk while it's doing. I want to do this in real time. I actually want to show you its output. I'm using Claude, specifically Opus 4.5, which is by all measures the best model for code development. It's also for me,
Oh, sorry. Just to clarify. So basically, it's Claude, but it's
it's
using.
skinned. Yeah, so
Oh, right.
think of it
Okay.
like a
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
skin of Claude for me. You can actually choose different models
Right.
within
Yep.
this. So if there's something that I know it's a little bit better at, then absolutely it will, you know, go
Yep.
ahead and use Gemini if I wanted it to use Gemini. If I wanted to use GPT, I can do that as well. Um, so I am going to be lazy now. Ordinarily, human in the loop, I would be sort of going through and validating claims and structures. I've asked it to come up with a plan for those that aren't watching this in real time. It's asking me for some decisions that need to be made. There wasn't enough clarity in my PID, so I am just
What's
going
what's
to
a what's a PID?
my product requirements document, my specification, or in learning and
Yep.
teaching
Specs
sense, the,
document.
the, the
Sure.
storyboard, basically. So the authentication, none for now. This is a demo. Database hosting, let's do locally. Deployment target, Vercel, but local for now. So basically, I'm just telling it we're just doing a demo. We don't need to deploy this to production server. Ignore. Make something up. So it's actually going to make an image for this book cover. I was a little bit cheeky. If later on you have a look at my document that I use for this, the specification, it's creating a quiz about my book content. So yeah, just a really terrible plug. So I'm going to continue. It's, going to use the answers to my questions to refine what's going on. So it's confirmed the approach, to-dos, and you'll see that it's actually planned the development phases step by step by step. And it will go through because I've ticked the box to say just go and do things and complete each one of those steps, including installing the dependencies that are required to make the software. Now, if I was an engineer, I could dive into that a little bit further, or I could specify exactly what I wanted it to use. But it has control over my desktop. And you'll see in a moment, once it finishes its first iteration cycle, it will go and load the browser and test the software in the browser. I've also, in the future, I will ask it to create a guidebook for users with images that it takes as screenshots from the
Mm.
software itself. So imagine a classic use case, and I'm trying to do this more and more in my workplace for the test automation that you typically do in learning and teaching and in software in general, using a tool like Cursor to first and foremost come up with a test plan, the steps that need to be replicated, and then actually running those tests in the browser like a real human using credentials or whatever you
Yeah.
provide it.
Oh, that's
And it will
interesting.
take,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll take
Yeah.
screenshots
Yeah.
and it'll
Right.
save those
Yeah.
screenshots and it'll find things that have gone wrong. It can do accessibility checking. So it'll actually, so for my website, for example, using this, I made it AAA compliant, which is almost unheard of in software, because it knows,
Yeah.
the how to
Hey,
do
Jason.
that.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? I mean, you've got like decades of experience and you're
Mm.
pretty technical. I know that myself. I've seen you in action. Is somebody more like me who doesn't actually know coding?
Mm.
Uh, how are they able to use this tool? Because is it a case of a little knowledge being dangerous? Because I guess you're kind of going through you're monitoring the code and etc. So is it okay for people who don't know much coding to use this
I
tool?
think it is. So we're getting to a plate like this point in history where there is so much scaffolding available out there for non-coders. So, for example, one of the places where you can deploy code is called Vercel. It's in Amazon Web Services. It's SOC 2 compliant, all those compliant tick boxes. It's where I typically deploy my software. They've just released this week step-by-step sort of document, like a skill, if you're familiar with Claude nomenclature,
Yeah.
a skill that has all of the world's best practices in security, the world's best practices in web design, the world's best practice in TypeScript, which is the language that they typically use. And before you write code, it will actually make sure it's reading that and assessing the code outputs based on those best practices. And there are similar skills available for things like cybersecurity and penetration testing. So, as somebody who doesn't necessarily code, you can probably produce code that is as good as, if not better than, some of the best engineers on the planet. For now, I would still caution that you need humans with real skills in the loop if you're deploying a production software that's high risk. Of course, like if you're authenticating users, collecting privacy, sort of information and data, of course, you want to have a team. But if you're building an MVP, or if you just want to call BS on a SaaS provider that's charging you hundreds of thousands of dollars for something, then getting your head around the art of the possible, I think, is really, really important. Yeah, that and again, as product managers, this is stuff that um, is your bread and butter, right? You know how to build a specification, you know how to gather requirements, you know how to, understand your audience and their needs and what's good, and you've got that sense of taste. Sorry, I'm getting pinged by randoms. Um, yeah, I think it's a tool that, worst case scenario, you can learn and know exists. And if someone's challenging you that something will cost months to develop and or hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop, you can actually push back.
So what you're saying is, if we were to take a typical organization and we'll have a chat while the code is
Mm.
doing its work in the background, which is
We've got plenty of time,
looks
yeah.
like it look like it's
Hmm.
doing a lot. So what's happening on the screen is basically it's kind of churning in the background, building the
Hmm.
app, and lo and behold, after hopefully a couple of minutes, it
Yep.
will show the output, right? That's what's here.
Yeah,
So at the
exactly.
moment you can okay. So let us say, you worked in L&D and worked in R&D. So, our technology requirements tend to happen basically around online courses and
Hmm.
LMS stuff,
Yep.
right? Or maybe some kind of a mini website for a learning initiative of some sort,
Yep.
to give resources. So, you know, where would L&D professionals whose main bread and butter is to is and of course classroom workshops. So their
Mm.
main outputs are that, right?
Yeah.
They're using a pre-built LMS or some kind of a website or an online course or a classroom workshop.
Yep.
Where could Cursor be used for that? So I'm kind of assuming that you
Yeah.
could prototype
Yep.
something and then say, hey, this is my idea, this is how it works, build,
Yep.
then pass it on to the IT guys to build it. Is that how it
Well,
works? Or
possibly. I mean, I think the world will pivot hard from needing a centralized IT to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I'll give you a classic example. Right now, I'm working on an LTI wrapper for, an Azure-based chat interface for our learning management system. And ordinarily, that would be a job that needs to go to architecture, it needs to do a whole range of different things, and it'd take 12 to 18 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars to deploy, and we'd probably have to get a vendor in to do that. It's now something that anybody with the right sort of initiative, I guess, and creativity and a requirements gathering capability can build in a day, right?
Okay.
Using a tool like this. You could, and again, it comes down to creativity. You could use Cursor to create the interactives within your learning management system, right? So the idea of needing an expensive rapid development tool, uh, gone. I've made video games using this. So if you had a
Right.
game that you wanted to build as part of your learning
Yep.
teaching experience, you could build it very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, I'm releasing one pretty soon that is just a silly side scroller. It took probably the best part of half a day to build.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, it's
Nice.
kind of up to your creativity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's good. Hey, the prompt that so
Hmm.
at the moment it's building your app, right?
Yep.
So tell me, because you kind of also mentioned that it might have some analytics.
Hmm.
Is
Yep.
that
It's
going to
building
be in the app when
analytics.
it comes up? So
Yeah.
just describe to us what the output is going to do.
Yeah, so the output will be a fully fledged quiz. So I know quizzes can be multiple choice. I've actually asked it to create different types of question types. So imagine it's probably going to build something that's somewhat akin to a full learning management system is where I'm expecting it to go. And on top of that, it's going to have a back-end analytics that will track users' progress through that. Now, I asked it explicitly not to create an authentication, so I don't need to log in. It's a demo. But I should be able to see in a visual dashboard progress tracking through a quiz. And it's coming up with the questions itself. Like I didn't actually tell it what questions, I just told it to look at my book content. So it's doing some of the similar things that you did with your storyboard, but now actually turning that into the learning and teaching activity.
Excellent. And the analytics?
And the analytics will be the same. So it will track usage, it'll track progression, it'll track how much time someone spent in a certain question, maybe question failure rates. Like we can determine exactly what it wants to do.
Right.
And it will do that in a
So
visual dashboard.
So, Jason, how much time does it take to build the app? Because it's been, I guess, close to 10 minutes.
Yep.
It depends upon the complexity. Does it also depend upon how powerful your computer is? Not really, or is it
No,
workload,
so
right?
usually not. It doesn't, it shouldn't, with a caveat. If you're using a really low powered laptop, then potentially it may have a bottleneck here and there. But by and large, it depends on the sophistication of I've obviously asked for something quite sophisticated. But if you're asking for something simple, it's quick. Different models have different performance levels as well. Like Opus 4.5 is a little bit slower, but it has a massive context window. So I can ask it to keep writing code all day long, and it will just keep going all day long. So I could build, and I
Yeah,
have built entire
yeah,
customer relationship management systems in a single prompt.
yeah, absolutely. Got a couple of questions while the app is building. The first one from Richard.
Hmm.
And I can see why Richard is asking this question. Richard, this conversation we had last time, I was planning to use these tools. So could you build a sophisticated business simulation with this?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, you could. But I guess once this we get this output, right? So
Hmm.
a follow-on question for Richard. Once you get what you get right now on the screen, what happens from here? Do you kind of how do you make it into a production ready system app?
That will mostly depend on your governance within your own business. Uh, Again, the specification could have been you need to make this in a wrapper that will fit within our learning management system. Whatever could be LTI, it could be whatever, right? And it would just plug and play directly within your learning management system like you do
Yeah,
today. Or if in this case, it's going to create an experience that is, how should I put it? It's designed to go on a server somewhere because that's just what I'm used to doing is deploying SaaS
yeah,
products, which
yeah,
means, yeah, you probably have to have some kind of, interaction with IT to make that happen. But again, you get to determine where it goes and how it does it. You would most likely in a large organization have governance structures and testing and manual testers, maybe test automation before you would actually stick it inside of a production environment.
Alrighty. Hey, how much longer to go? Hopefully it
It's pretty
doesn't.
soon. So it's
Yeah,
actually
okay.
just doing some of the last bits now, just based on
Okay.
what I'm reading.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And there's another question from Pradeep in the chat. Can you please comment on how Claude, I think you covered this in the last answer,
Mm.
cursor or cloud development work with existing human written code, say a basic LMS? Actually, Pradeep, we did have a really good webinar, and I'll send you a link in December about the impact of AI on learning technology, which kind of also discussed, impact on LMS. Our view and my view is that LMS will, and I'd love to hear your views too, is that LMSs will kind of remain the repository of mandatory learning completions and reporting, right? But all other learning which is not mandatory will probably start migrating to outside the LMS, and hopefully LMS can keep a record of that. So not exactly answering Pradeep's question directly, but I'm kind of just emphasizing that I think the strong belief is that LMS won't be or never should have been the center of learning in organizations, and AI is going to is changing that already. What do you say to that, just in terms of using cursor Claude for the, oh, there you go, you
It's
got the
actually, and
output.
to be clear, what it's doing now, it is testing it for me.
Oh, right,
So
okay.
I'm hands off screen. Like I am not touching this at all, right? It's going through and doing a whole test automation suite to see if there are any problems. And it will go through and iterate and document what those problems are. But there's an analytics dashboard. It's testing that dashboard as well as the main quiz itself. And it shows you like the result tiers, the average score completion rate, total number of attempts, the average time that it takes to do it, question performance, correct rate, average points per score. Like it's pretty powerful, right? And it's going to at some point provide me with a summary of outcomes. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, that's kind of I mean, it's using my brand color, so I can't complain. But it's actually followed even the branding guidelines that I've provided it. So if you have a style guide, it'll follow it to the T. If you want to make sure it doesn't include things like M dashes, which always annoy me with AI, then it will not use them. So yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
fun. Yeah,
yeah.
this is the
And same
quiz.
thing with the Gemini Opal. If I had fed it the branding guidelines and it would have followed it, I would be very keen to see accessibility guidelines, how it tackles that. But anyway, that's another question. But yeah, no, over to you. Looks like it's doing something exciting on the screen.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of seeing what happens when I get a fake answer. So it's actually gone through, and you see everything's animated. It's actually giving me answers directly from the book as well. It's gone, okay, where should most organizations position themselves on a build to buy spectrum? Well, strategically hybrid, yeah, or whatever, right? So I get to sort of move the scale. So you can see it's got lots of different options, right?
So this is a
Um,
question type you're showing, question
yeah,
type,
yeah,
which,
different
okay.
question types that it's just come up with. I didn't
Yep,
tell it to build this.
yep.
Again, multiple choice, or in this case, like changing the order of things, right? Like it's kind of cool what it's come up with.
So tell
But
me,
if you
did you also feed the content? So you said quiz it on this topic or,
yeah, so I told it which topic to do it
okay.
on. I could have
Yeah,
scaffolded that more to be fair.
yep,
But yeah, I just said, here's the content of my book.
yep,
Come up with a quiz for the end
yep.
user and then basically give them feedback based on whatever options that they've chosen that are in line with my recommendations from the book, which is exactly what it's doing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hey, anything else to show here before we kind of finish off?
I think that's kind of it. I mean, it did show the dashboard. I mean, the one thing I was going to do, but I know that just cognizant of time, I was going to ask it, can you take screenshots of the quiz and then create a user guide for end users. All right. So it'll go ahead and do that now. So it'll take screenshots of every page and it'll actually document exactly step by step how to use the tool.
Fantastic. I think there is probably need to spend more time to this, but we promise we'll keep to 45 minutes, and this is where I think we've finished. So I hope everyone really enjoyed. Obviously, there's lots there. This is just like a entry into the door, really. There's a lot there, but hopefully it does demonstrate that it is possible to. It's quite accessible and possible to do things that will help you to become more productive. And hopefully you're able to do that. We will post this in the webinar recording in YouTube, etc. So I think I'll stop recording now.